welcome back to another long-awaited episode of DannieBSpeaks, the podcast. I am your host, Tahir Ali, and I'm not going to make any excuses. We're just going to keep it real, and I'll admit that I have been slacking with my own podcast as well as my website. But listen, seriously, starting a business is hard as hell. I didn't think it was going to be this much work, but it is. I've been working so much behind the scenes that by the time I do feel like I have some time to actually record or write, I'm really exhausted. I'm going to eventually come up with a consistent schedule. I'm not sure when, but it will be coming. I'm not going to make any promises, but there's that. Also, I have been having problems with my voice, and some of you may know last May I had throat surgery from acid reflux issues that got out of control. So yeah, I've been having issues with my voice too. And when I record just on my own, I'm just constantly just talking, and it does bother me. So there's that. And also I will admit that, okay, I did record 2 prior episodes of this podcast. This is my 3rd time recording. The first 2 I just completely scrapped because I just wasn't feeling it. It was dry. I wasn't into it. And it wasn't that I was feeling bad or nothing. It was just that it was things I didn't want to talk about, really. I just felt like I should have talked about them because they are things that are out there that are popular. Like I mentioned about Kanye and his bullshit. I mentioned about Jussie Smollett a little bit, mainly about his brother and some issues, which I may get into on another podcast because that ties into something else that I do eventually want to talk about. I also mentioned the Bad Boys Club LA with Peaches on the cast, and yeah, it just wasn't, I just didn't feel good putting out that material. It just wasn't hitting with me. And it didn't feel right for some reason. So those things just don't move me. And as I mentioned, the conversation was dry, real dry. So this week and going forward, I want to talk about things on here that truly mean a lot to me. Now, some topics may be heavy. Some will be lighthearted. You know, lighthearted, filled with good old-fashioned pettiness and shade, of course, you know me. But I also want to catch you all up with some of my plans for my brand, my business. I really need your support. That's one thing that I'm really going to have to start getting out there because I really need support. Yeah, so we'll just get into all that in this episode. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Okay, so one of the main topics that I want to talk about in this episode is it's been something that I've been wanting to do a blog post on this topic for a very long time, but I feel that I can be more expressive on the podcast because it's something that I've actually experienced, that I'm still experiencing, that I go through. And right now it's being put on full display for the world to see. And still, there are people who don't want to admit that it's going on. But anyway, I don't even worry trying to get through to those people anymore. Regardless of your race, regardless of your nationality, regardless of your gender, I don't even try to get through to those people anymore. But anyway, moving on. So, and this also may end up being discussed on a podcast that I co-host with my friend, and I will talk about that a little later in the show. But let me go ahead and say it so we can get right on into it. It's no secret. As I mentioned, people don't want to admit to it. They don't even want to talk about it. It's an ugly topic, but it's true. And it's one of those things that if we don't talk about, it can be ignored. It can be ignored, and we can just keep on with business as usual, literally. But it's been said over and over again, and it's the truth. Black women are the least protected and respected, period. It's just true. And this is all over the board. I mean, you see it everywhere, but especially in the workplace. What made me really want to talk about this is the treatment of the latest Supreme Court Justice nominee, Ketanji Brown-Jackson. I mean, her qualifications have been laid out right before our eyes. I mean, laid out right there, okay? She has more qualifications and years in place than all of the Orange Devils bullshit nominees put together. So that's number one. And he had 3 of them, 3 nominees, all white, of course, 2 men, 1 woman, yet their qualifications were never questioned by many who are strongly questioning Judge. But not only are her qualifications being questioned, And of course, it should take more than qualifications, because you can be qualified for a job, but are you going to do the job right? That's it. But they can't find anything on her yet. They're making up all these and, making up and twisting all these bullshit stories and these conspiracy theorists, or just flat out racists that are out here putting things out about her. And it's ridiculous. And the sad thing is, some of y'all fall right into the trap. And this causes division and dissension within the Black community. And that's what's really sad. And I don't get that. And to me, this is deja vu. They did the same thing to Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, I'm not a big fan of hers. I know some things that she may have done were questionable, but she's a politician. Okay, they're not perfect. None of them. Not even the ones that I don't care for. When someone says one thing, it's like you take that moment to attack these Black women. And guess who's the most vocal in the attacks? Black people, both men and women. It just happens with, these QAnon people, racists, or just people who don't want to see a Black woman in a position of power. They make up these things and then they grow legs. And next thing you know, but are you sure she's for us? Are you sure this, that, and the other? Why aren't these? It's never questioned when it's a Black man, but when it's a Black woman, it's always questioned. You know what I'm saying? So that goes to prove that even Black folks will believe anything just to go against a Black woman. Let's just say it. I don't care how you feel about it. It is what it is. We know that if a Black man was getting this backlash, it would be a totally different response from the Black community. But you know what? That's a whole different discussion for another day. Let's move on. I just want to talk about some basics about being a Black woman in the workplace. So as a Black woman, we honestly have to work 10 times harder than our counterparts in the workplace. Even Black men, regardless if y'all don't see it, it is what it is. Because not only are we Black, but we're women. So there's that. And I can't even count how many times that I have been looked over, or should I say overlooked, whatever. Overlooked, there we go. Ignored. And those are two different things, okay? And we've been just disrespected right to our face. Our intelligence has been questioned. And we can have all the education, all the experience, and still have our qualifications questioned. I experience it all the time, even in my current job right now. Now, I have worked both in the private sector and in the government for over 20 years combined. And I've seen a lot. I've held a lot of different positions. I have worked with a lot of different people. The treatment doesn't vary much. I honestly could write a book, and I just may. Now that I'm sitting here talking it out, stay tuned for that. Yeah, because I got a lot to say about this. But, I've been in management. I've been a lead, an analyst, all sorts of positions of quote unquote importance. I know that I was only put there in these positions. I had to interview a couple positions. I was just placed, but that was because of some other issues, but I know I was only put there because of my knowledge. And, and that's fine, because I'm only about my coin right about now. That's really about it. And, I make really good money, but sometimes money isn't everything. I'm at a point right now where I don't care how you feel. I don't care whose feelings I hurt or whatever. I'm about my coin, plain and simple. I may have been put in a job because of my knowledge. And I say put because they never want you to know or to feel that you've earned it. Just a FYI. You didn't earn this position. We gave you this position. That's pretty much the attitude that you get. But I was placed in these jobs or put in these jobs because they knew that the work would get done and that I could work well with others. And the people above us wouldn't have to be bothered too much because I could get the stuff done, or I could work with people who could get the stuff done. That's how it's been since I've been working, period. But best believe they will still let you know your place. It can vary from tones in an email. When they do have to interact with the peasant, me, you may get attitude or even just somebody being real condescending with you or whatever. I've had those things, and I would say quite a bit of times throughout the week, I have to do those per my last email or whatever, and I have to type them over and over again because this is actually going to be in writing, so I can't just say exactly how I feel. But my point does get across, and some people get it and others don't. Some people will leave you alone and realize that, oh, I can't mess with this one, and then others are just like, oh, I don't give a damn, whatever. So, I mean, and you can see how they interact with people who aren't Black females. It's very different when you see their interaction. It is very different with other people. And I want to talk about an incident that I just thought of. Like I said, I could seriously write a book about the things that I've personally experienced in the workplace or things that I've seen, but mainly I could do enough on what I've experienced. An incident that makes me laugh, but also pisses me off at the same time, it's something that seems so small, but it really set the tone for how I would be treated at the job that I'm at now. And I like the job. I really do. This really set the tone for, oh, things aren't much different, wherever you go. And I knew that because by the time I took the job, I had been working for quite a few years. So the current job that I'm at now, someone who was my lead at the time, and he was a white man, the same age as my parents. And, I just want to set the scene so you can get the visual, well, maybe not the visual, but you could tell who I was dealing with, okay? And as I mentioned, he was my lead. Let's just say that he knew absolutely nothing about the job, but he was safe at the time because he was one of the good old boys. And that's who was running the area where I was at, pretty much. So he was safe. He didn't have to do anything. There were people on the team that he could go to, they would basically do the work for him or whatever, or hold his hand through it. And it really pissed me off watching it, but I was like, I'm not doing that shit. And needless to say, 3 Black women helped me learn my job, and they did it very well. But anyway, so when this incident happened, I may have been on the job for only a couple of weeks. So we really didn't know each other, of course. You know what I mean? Like, I've only been there a couple weeks or whatever. It was a Friday, and it was almost time to get off. For him, it was time to get off. I think I may have been getting ready to get off like 15 minutes, a half hour after he was. So, I was winding down my day too, but it was time for him to go. His wife, who also worked there, she was ready. She was standing there in the aisle, like, what is he doing? I'm ready to go. It's Friday. Let's blow this joint, okay? And his slow ass couldn't get an Excel spreadsheet to save. Now, there are times when there are glitches, or you may not notice that you didn't do something that may cause something not to happen or whatever, because I've, done things where I'm trying to save some work and either I'm in a cell where it won't let me proceed to do anything and I don't notice because my cursor's there and I've been doing something else, or, things happen. I get it. So, he couldn't figure it out. And I could tell he was getting frustrated because he couldn't get it to save. And his wife is there, just standing there. And she wasn't really being impatient. She was really a sweet lady. And so instead of asking me, who was sitting right there, or even another younger Black girl that was sitting right next to me, he gets up, goes to a training room where the young white girl whose place that I took on the team, she was in training for her next job that happened to be on his wife's team. But anyway, so yeah, he gets up and gathers her from her training. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? And yeah, this is a true story. We're sitting right there and he just gets up to go and ask her. Okay. But guess what? She couldn't get it to save either, because she was one of those people who she just talked. She talked to make it seem like she was smarter than she actually was. There were other reasons why she was able to move around so quickly, but that's that's something else that I would like to talk about another time. So anyway, now when I'm sitting here just listening to this, because there was a wall in between us, but I could hear everything that was going on. And I'm over there with my petty ass keying to myself. And I'm loving every minute of it, because I'm just like, you could have just seriously asked me. And maybe I couldn't have got it to save. Just to get up and go grab somebody out of training because you don't think that I know how to do it. And it wasn't because I was new. You know what I mean? It was just because the girl that was sitting next to me, she had been there like a year before me. It wasn't because of that. You know what I mean? You just felt more comfortable asking your own, and you didn't think that we knew anything. Let's just keep it real. I knew what it was. And, I mean, I wasn't getting up to help. I wasn't getting up to help shit. I wasn't getting up to do nothing. But the younger black girl who worked with us, she ended up getting to help him, and she got it to save immediately. I'd never asked, like, what happened, but she just came back over like, girl, and we just started cracking up because it was just like, it didn't take her any time to get that to save. So I thought that was funny. But anyway, she said she did it only because she liked his wife and she knew that she was ready to go. And, I felt that, but I still wasn't helping. So the conclusion that I came to early on is that he didn't think I knew how to save an Excel sheet just because he didn't, pretty much. That's what I'm thinking. Or he didn't want to ask because he didn't want me or anyone else who he felt was probably beneath him, who he didn't see as a equal, to know something that he didn't know, which ended up being a lot. I mean, a lot that he didn't know. And it's a shame when just a few months into the job, you're helping the lead who had been there for years. But anyway, I digress. So it happens all the time. And you know what? I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that he didn't ask me, because he didn't think I knew what Outlook was. Microsoft Outlook. I mean, he didn't think I knew what that was. He thought that it was something brand new to me. And I was just like, dude, I mean, but even today in my leadership position, I still don't get the respect. I get asked all the questions and to fix everything. I get asked my input daily, but now I rarely give it unless it's something that really needs to be done, or I can put it in writing to make sure that I have a paper trail. And it's been easier now because we have been working from home. I mean, we work from home anyway, but we've been working home consistently. Like my job, like it depends on what area you're in, but I would go into the office 2 days a week and then be home for 3 days a week. Now, since for about 2 years now, we've been home every day. So everything that I'm doing is in writing, so that's fine. But there's that. So yeah, I mean, and the reason why I do that is because I know that I won't get the props for it. I know that, I won't even be a factor in any kind of discussion. And right now, as I mentioned, I'm not playing these games anymore. I'm just there to make my coin and try to get my business going so that I can retire early. That's it. It just doesn't stop at white people or men, period, white or black men or whatever other race. Even black women who, quote unquote, have made it. I mean, they'll look down on you as well if they don't feel that you're on their level. I don't know what that's about, but I've encountered that plenty of times as well. And I'm just sick of it. I'm just like, it's already very stressful to be a black woman in the workplace, as I mentioned, but I'm just over it. Like I said, I'm working my damn way to an early retirement, and there's that. But there is so much bullshit that goes on in the workplace, period. When it comes to being a black woman in the workplace, it's challenging. We just don't get the respect. We don't get the recognition. People wonder why most of us are unhappy at jobs. And this is why. Okay, so let's change the mood a little bit. And let me give you an update on my brand. And the first thing I want to discuss is my merch line, because it's something that's not out there yet, but it is coming. It's coming soon. And I'm still aiming for a late spring, early summer release. I've been designing this merch line for about 5 to 6 years now, seriously. And I'm ready to get it done. I'm ready to get it out there. People ask me what my merch will consist of, and it's pretty much any and everything that you can buy from any on-demand printing service, like t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, tank tops, bags, phone cases, stickers, pretty much anything like that. I'm sure face mask will be available. It's nothing fancy. It's just fun and meaningful to me, and I'm no artist at all. I can't draw for shit. I'm not a graphic designer at all. The merch line will just be various designs and phrases of mine, things like that. And it'll, of course, intertwine with my brand. If I have something special coming out, I'm going to release part of my merch line that's going to mimic that, that's going to help get the word out there for the project that I'm working on. So please be on the lookout for that. That's the merch line. So let me backtrack a little bit. So what exactly is my brand? And I did a post on my website, DannieBSpeaks.com, titled, Who is Tahir Ali? That will explain what I am doing and what I have planned for the ongoing future. Being a content creator is just that. You are someone who usually works independently and creates content of various things on various platforms. So, as you can see, I have my social media, I have a website, my podcast, my YouTube page. I'll be releasing merchandise. And, I'm also working on becoming an author as I work on writing books. I have my photography that I'm doing. So it's just like basically trying to do everything myself. And in doing all this myself, I had to protect myself. So I not only purchased my company name, which is DannieBSpeaks, but also started it as an LLC. So this is for real. This is not, just a blog anymore. It's not just a podcast anymore. It's a business. So I want people to keep that in mind. And with that being said, as I mentioned, I'm running an actual business. So let me just say this. If you request my services for anything, please be advised that there are fees involved. Just like any other business, it's absolutely no shade. It's just fact. And, I not only work a 9-to-5 full-time job, and of course that takes away from time that I could be working on what I actually enjoy doing, which is this. So anytime I'm not working on my business or anything for my brand, that is taken away from money that I could be making doing this. Like any other business, running all of this takes money. So in turn, I have to charge money. And that could go from anything to me helping you start a website. And I'm not a designer, so it won't be going that deep. So the fees aren't that much. If you want a consultation on how to do a podcast or something like that, if you want to advertise on one of my platforms, that's going to cost money. I can't explain it any other way. So moving on, short stories and more posts are definitely coming to the website. More photography is coming as well. And I'm working on rearranging some things on my website so that each project I'm working on will have its own place on the site. But that takes time. And as I mentioned, I'm doing everything myself, and I'm not a web designer or anything like that. I use templates, real simple, because trying to get everything just the way I want it and how I want everything to look. So the podcast. And as you know, I have 3 podcasts now. This one is my first one. It's my baby, DannieBSpeaks, the podcast. And also there's DannieBSpeaks Presents, Not Another True Crime Podcast. And I will be changing the name of that show pretty soon. I think I mentioned it before, maybe on that podcast. I think I mentioned it. And there's a reason for the name change. And it's because there's actually another podcast named Not Another True Crime Podcast. And that's why I titled mine, DannieBSpeaks Presents, Not Another True Crime Podcast. I'm not sure how often they post or if the show is current or not, but I don't want any issues because the podcast is growing. The title is long. That's another reason. The title's long. That's annoying to me. But I have to update some things before I make the name change. And of course, it'll still be the same exact show. It'll just be a different name. So I'm working on that too. I told you I'm really doing a lot of shit behind the scenes, like seriously. And another podcast that I have been doing for the past couple of months now is called Girl, You Know What? And I co-host that with my longtime friend Keisha, who I've known since high school. And she's also the creator, owner, operator of Wellness and Women and Flowing Tresses. So you can follow her at Wellness and Women on her social media, and be sure to visit her website at wellnessandwomen.com. If you go to her website or her social media, that will also lead you to her other businesses and information. And the podcast is basically just 2 friends who talk about any and everything, pretty similar to this podcast, but it has the conversation aspect of it, which I love, and I'll get into that in a little bit. We're just talking, and always, of course, talked on the phone. Just the conversations that we would have. We were just like, oh my goodness, like this would be a good topic for a podcast. Maybe, we'd like to get other people involved. So that's pretty much how we came up with doing the podcast together. Just know that with our podcast, with our shows, there's always a message or a lesson within our discussions is to make you think and also interact with us. So you could check it out if you haven't yet, and I know you will enjoy it. I know you will. And you can listen to that on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Audible. You can listen to it on both of our websites. There are links on there, DannieBSpeaks.com and wellnessandwomen.com, and also on my YouTube page, DannieBSpeaks. And be sure to follow the show's IG page at girl_you-know-what. I was just really sitting here thinking about, like, I already knew it was going to be fun because both of us are idiots. Both of us just like to, we like to have good conversation, but we also like to have fun. So I knew it was going to be a good time. Seriously, been having a lot of fun doing it. And it's so much easier to do a show because of the interaction, the conversation aspect of it. And doing this show, since we are recording it remotely because we live in two different cities, it's also making me more confident in finally being able to bring other people on my shows. So I'll touch on that in a second, but let's move on with more brand talk. My YouTube page. Okay, people. So real talk, I need to get my subscriber count up on there. And I'm doing good with the little content that I have uploaded so far. But I know that once I get my other content on there, the subscribers will grow even more. I'm sure of that. But y'all, where are my people at? Where are the people that I actually know? Where is y'all? And yes, I say, where is y'all? Yeah. But as of right now, my YouTube page, I have all of my podcasts. I have a few nostalgic videos, one that I actually created myself. The other ones are videos that I just ran across out here on these streets, and I wanted to share with everyone. More of those will be coming to the page because I really like enjoying those, and they seem to really get good interaction, which I love. But soon I will also be posting some original content of my own. One thing I will be working on is mixing and mashing up music. Some people may know and others may not, but I used to DJ for years, mainly in my college days, in my early to mid 20s. I pretty much stopped going into my late 20s because I was getting sick at that time and gaining a lot of weight from being sick, and I just didn't have the energy to do it anymore. So I kind of just lost the interest in it, and I knew I was done when I sold all my equipment. But anyway, I used to DJ for years. People who know me know that I absolutely love music, all different types of genres. I just love it. So I've been playing around with my little Pioneer DJ controller to freshen up on my skills. So that is coming. I've been having a lot of fun doing that, just playing around with different songs, playing around with older songs, playing around with newer songs. It's been a good time. So that'll be coming. Something I probably won't get monetized for it when I am able to get monetized, but it's just something that I enjoy doing. Also, I have a bunch of photos and different things, documents and stuff like that I'm putting together for a certain type of video that I want to produce. And that's, I think, going to be a lot of fun to do. And I just really want to put that out there to share it with you all. It'll be like a lot of history type stuff, but, not too boring. I think it'll be another form of nostalgia, which I love doing. So we'll be putting that together. I also will be doing my own version of documentaries. Now, some are going to be serious, but some are going to be shady as hell. Let's just keep it real. So Andrew Peaches Caldwell and Amberlyn Reed most likely will be my first two victims. So yeah, so get ready for that. I'm excited about doing those. Now, those are going to be very time consuming, especially starting out, because I've never did that before. And I've been playing around with iMovie, trying to learn how to get the clips together and stuff like that. It takes a lot of work. It really does. I really have a new respect for a lot of these YouTubers, especially the ones who can react and stuff like that to a video that was just posted and get it out the next day, or even sometimes like an hour or two later. It's crazy. But anyway, for my YouTube page, let's just be 100. I need to get to 1,000 subscribers so that I can also go live with you all. And I think that would be fun, just having just a live session, just being able to talk with everybody. We can interact with each other. That would be fun. I would really love to do that. I could also do like live shows, like live podcasts, live interviews, things like that I really want to get into. I'm excited and looking forward to getting to that point. But also with 1,000 subscribers, I can become a YouTube partner and have access to more things, which will help grow my brand. And here's my thing. Even if you don't go to YouTube, if you don't watch YouTube, just subscribe. It's another form of support that will cost you absolutely nothing. YouTube is free. Okay, so, and speaking of all that, let's talk about supporting and promoting your girl. Now, people don't realize how important, or maybe they do, but I don't know if you realize how important a share, a follow, or a like is to building a brand and a business. In any business, but especially when you are a content creator. And I know you all can do it. I mean, as much as I get asked to make posts public from my private page, I mean, no shade, but or as many likes and comments that I get from these stupid memes and things that I post, I know you all can share when I post a blog or a podcast. When I post something about my brand, I mean, these shares mean a lot. And as I mentioned, it doesn't cost you anything to do, nothing at all. For those that want to reach out to be on my podcast, okay, so there are so many people who reach out to me and they say, when can I be on your podcast? When you gonna let me be on your podcast? But I have never once seen anyone share anything or even comment like they've even listened to the show. And I get it. Podcasts and blogs, whatever, things in that realm aren't everyone's thing. I get it. But if you want to be on the show, you must know something about them and have listened to a podcast here or there. So why not support mine, especially if you want to be a part of it? I mean, I'm just saying. And I know people aren't listening who want to be on it because at the end of every podcast, I give instructions on how to get on the show. Yeah, every single one. I've been doing that since the beginning of the podcast. But that's all I'm going to say about that. It's up to everybody else to make the next move if that's what you want to do. But that's the brand update. DannieBSpeaks LLC. Yes, ma'am. So thank you all for tuning in to DannieBSpeaks, the podcast, and spending a little time with me. This podcast is an extension of my website, DannieBSpeaks.com, where I post about any and everything on there pretty much. But be sure to check out my other solo podcast, DannieBSpeaks Presents, Not Another True Crime Podcast, where, of course, I discuss one of my favorite things, which is true crime. You can listen to both on my website. Again, that's DannieBSpeaks.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Audible, iHeartRadio, and my YouTube page, DannieBSpeaks. Also on my YouTube page, I have re-uploaded all of my old podcasts that aren't on any streaming formats anymore, but they are on my podcast. They are on my YouTube page. And on my YouTube page, you can also enjoy nostalgic videos, music mashups, and other original content will be coming soon. So be sure to subscribe to that YouTube page as well. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at DannieBSpeaks. If you have Apple Music and want to listen to some good playlists, follow me on Apple Music, where I share some of my playlists that I create for your enjoyment, as well as mine. And I am at Tahir Ali on Apple Music. If you need to reach out to me for any business inquiries, such as promoting your business, products, etc., on my podcast, my website, or on my social media platforms, or all three. If you want to discuss collaborating with me or sponsoring me, please hit me up at DannieBSpeaks@gmail.com. Speaking of collaborations, don't forget about the podcast that I co-host with my friend Keisha. It is titled Girl You Know What, and you can follow her social media and visit her website under her brand name, which is Wellness in Women. That will lead you to all of her other businesses and information. And you can listen to Girl You Know What on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Audible. You can also listen on both of our websites, DannieBSpeaks.com and WellnessInWomen.com, as well as on my YouTube page, DannieBSpeaks. Be sure to follow the show's IG page at girl_you-know-what. And if you have any business inquiries for us about this show, any endorsements, questions, comments, whatever, emails, you can send us an email at girlyouKnowWhat@gmail.com. And as always, I appreciate you all. Be sure to continue to support or start supporting the DannieBSpeaks brand. It would be so greatly appreciated. Just a follow, a share, word of mouth, it can really go a long way. So until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Be safe out there, and I will catch you all on the next one. Peace.